Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everybody here. Thank you for being here. We will do our flag salute and we'll have Esther Ochoa come up and she's going to lead us in the flag salute. Are you? You say ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good job.
You can have this, and then we're gonna take a little picture of ourselves. This nice lady, she's gonna go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Do like 6 times.
1, 2, 3.
Nice smile.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
All right, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. I think I already welcomed everybody, but I welcome everybody for coming. Thank you. Any additions or deletions? We talked about possibly moving one thing, but no public comment. So we will just move on from there. We're going to move at this time. I'd like to call up Corey, and Brad Shreve is going to present some information about the levy for us tonight.
So, introduce Corey really quick, briefly. He works for D. Davidson, and so in the past, when we sold our bonds, it was John Gores that helped us out, and he has taken over for John Gores, who is retired. So, so they do this out of the goodness of the heart when they come through to do levy presentations, because it's really about when we get to the bonds, where they help us out, levies and bonds.
Everything is all related, right? You can't pass a bond without having a history of passing educational levies. We're just really supportive of public education in our state. I live and work in the Spokane office, but I work in K-12 school finance across Washington State. Hopefully we've crossed paths at WASDA before. If you're heading this year, come see us at the booth. But our core competency is supporting schools with bonds like we did with the district in 2017. But because bonds are related to taxes, education levies are tax related, everything is kind of connected. Make sure the districts don't get too far overextended with a bond rate, so they can continue passing education levies. I think we would all argue that education levies are probably more important to students than bonds when it comes to the day-to-day impact that it has on kids. But I put together a few slides here. The goal of this presentation is just get you a little bit of extra data and information to give you that extra confidence when it comes to decision-making on setting your EP&O replacement levy amounts. I was invited by Dr. Darling to come, and one of the main reasons we want to do is just get data in front of you on what your history is, what the steps are, and then I'm going to turn back over to Brad, who's going to talk a little bit more about some of the details on the next steps. But I put together an introduction to levies and bonds. It'll be real brief in case a lot of you have been through it already. Then I'm going to talk about your property values and school taxes. Then I got a couple other considerations. One of them, we'll talk about local effort assistance. So we'll dig right in here. The 3 types of taxes that are available to school districts are education levies, capital projects levies, and school bonds. We're going to really just talk about them high level before we go more in depth. But you might have heard levies are for learning, bonds are for building. And so levies for learning, I say that this is flexible revenue from your local taxpayers to use at the district's discretion. But unfortunately, the state still isn't fully funding education. You're still using this local levy for class size reduction, special education, school nurses, food service, gas, even electricity, and keeping lights on and insurance bills. So we wish it was just full flexible revenue that you can use for field trips, athletics, drama, music, arts, but you're still using it to fill the gaps from basic education. You're subject to levy lid laws. You used to have a lot of support for an amount that is above current levy lid law. And so we're going to talk about what your maximums are coming up. You can only do up to 4 years. Your history shows you've been doing 4-year levies recently. And then you need simple majority, 50% plus 1 for passage. Your current levy is approved by voters through 2026. And that's the act when you replace it in that year. So you don't have a gap starting in 2027. So you can't wait till 27 to take over. We're digging too much about capital levies, but those are usually technology, safety, security, earmarked specifically for those resources. I think you might have had a capital levy 5 or 6 years ago for a brief period.
Yeah.
And then bonds, your bonds were approved in 2017, that'll mature in 38. You're actually, as a board, going to have an opportunity to, you'll have an opportunity, but not the obligation to refinance those bonds on their 10-year anniversary. And I'll be coming up in 2027. So those will be a candidate that we reviewed. So we'll be kind of bothering you about a year from now. Your history in Grandview School District, you'll notice in green is your education levies. Every single election for the last 25 years has been more than 60%. The only hiccup that you had here that many districts that had a hiccup across the state was post-pandemic. And so you'll notice that the second attempt was much more like your previous attempts. But really this chart's just showing massive voter support. The only challenge that you'll notice was the capital project levy, a brand new tax. Those take a little bit of education and information sharing to get the support over 50%. And then like many districts in 2022 and 23, we're still seeing some of the effects from COVID at school districts and elections. So that's not unusual, but really high levels of support historically here at Grandview. A little bit more about education program levies. You might remember, I've been doing levies and working on it for about 25 years. We used to call them M&O levies. Anybody remember calling them M&Os? Yeah. We stopped calling them M&Os because schools started having capital levies that's dedicated for fixing roofs and HVAC. And so you'd have a capital levy and a maintenance levy. They sounded exactly the same. So that's why we're calling them education program levies today. You also have a limit of $2.50 per thousand. What that means is we had all the property up in your community, and that's businesses, homes, apartments, farms. You can only tax $2.50 per thousand of property. And so I'm going to share you that number with you later. There's no validation requirement. Does not matter how many people show up to vote. We would love everybody to show up to vote, but all you need is those that do show up, 50% plus one. Bonds have validation. They need a certain number of people to show up after the previous general election. You don't have to worry about that on this election. And you get 2 attempts at it, 2 attempts in the calendar year. So what is the important things for the board to understand? What are your steps? One is you set the election date. Historically run in February. And February is one of the strongest months to attempt because of the success rate, but also because if there's ever a hiccup, then you have 3 next elections to choose from. So you can set the election date. The reason we're talking today is we're kind of making the assumption historically that you choose February. You set the levy amounts, but you estimate the tax rate. We can't see the future, but you're going to lock in the amount. And then as your economy grows, as there's more homes built, the county assessor and treasurer work together to determine the actual rate. But you have a history here of outperforming the rate you put on that ballot. You also set the levy collection of years. You define the language that's going to go on the ballot in this resolution. And then this newer thing is you appoint committee members that would like to be on the for and against. You can appoint up to 3 people on either side. That's your only responsibility, is to advertise that opportunity a few weeks before you adopt resolutions and appoint them during the meeting, and then your hands are off. It goes back to the county, and then they work with the county to turn in their statements. And then your district is also responsible for providing an explanatory statement for that same voters pamphlet. If you remember back in the day, we used to get that voters pamphlet and it would say license tabs, for and against, and all the statements. We never had to do that at a school. It was never required until 2021, 2022. This is somewhat new. I mentioned earlier that you have 4 elections to choose from: February, April, August, or November. November being the general election. You'll hear a lot of folks say you should just go straight to the general election. And that's great for turnout, but at the same time, then you only get 1 opportunity to run that election. So many schools pick the first opportunity. And the goal here is to know whether or not this is supported by the community or not before your budget's adopted. So most school districts do choose February. If you are moving forward towards February 26th, the election date is the 10th. And you will need to have your resolution to the county by December 12th. And of course, that's on the shoulders of your leadership team. Another date to circle in your calendar is January 23rd. That's when ballots will be mailed. So the district has the opportunity to send out an informational flyer that has the factual data about what the levy is used for. You want to kind of beat the ballot out so people have a little bit of information before they make that decision. The voters pamphlet helps a little bit more with that now, with the explanatory statement, the for and against, so they'll get some info. But January 23rd is a really good date to focus on for getting information out. at the latest. So as I said, we do just a real brief introduction to the basics of levies and bonds. Now I want to get into your data. I think this is the real interesting part as a board member, knowing who you represent in your sections of the community. In the old days here, the district had a tax base that was between 750 million almost every year for 8 straight years and only grew very slightly. And then things started changing around 1819, where we started seeing 5% growth. But during the pandemic, a couple things, of course, happened when we relived this, but people learned they could be more mobile. They could live in a place where more quality of life, and they started flocking out of urban areas like Portland and Seattle, east of the mountains. So that caused a little bit of shortage. They were overpaying for some homes and driving prices up. And then as people were building homes, the shortage of materials because things were shut down, it skyrocketed home prices. And overall, you had such huge increases in your assessed valuation, but a good percentage of that was also new construction. This year alone, we have your 2026 numbers. You went up 8% in growth, but $88 million was in new construction. Your previous new construction record was 40 million. So this 1 year alone, you've doubled your record of 40 million. And that just shows how much commercial and new homes are going up in your community. So keep that in mind as you're studying these levy amounts. If you keep everything perfectly level, then this new construction is not going to add additional dollars to your community. It's just going to offset the taxes that other folks are paying. So some boards keep in mind, like, okay, our community is growing, so we want to have this levy grow to absorb any kind of new students or new support mechanisms or cost of things. But you're up to about a $1.8 billion assessed valuation when less than 10 years ago, you were $1 billion less than that. So this is a crazy amount of growth in this area right now. And if that's your growth of the size of your economy, this is how much money you've asked for in your education levy. And you'll notice it's kind of just an inflationary model. It's just going up slightly year over year. This is the numbers I pulled from the county assessor. And in green are the numbers that already happened. And in tan is the last year in your currently voter approved levy of 2.4 million. So that's your jumping off point into your new election. Now I mentioned that you have a levy lid, what you can't ask for above. You're at $2.3 million right now. OSPI in the state of Washington says you could ask for 4.2 million. So you're almost $2 million under your lid right now. So something to consider as you set the new amount. And as you set that new amount, if you're not at levy lid, it's nice to let people know, right? We're not asking for the most we could. We're only asking for what we need. So keep that number in mind that you're not at levy lid today. With your tax base going up and your levy going up slowly, this is what's happened to your tax rate. You can see that come down. That's what naturally should happen as home values go up and the bill isn't going up as with the property values. So you'll see that you peaked in 2018 at 549, your tax rate. I have these color coded. In green is your education levy, in tan is your construction bond, and in brown is that capital levy that you had here in the gap here. But you'll notice that the tax rate has gone from 549 down to 309 today. So I can't say that that $2.50 tax decrease means that people are paying less to you, but it sure does increase the possibility of that happening, because home values have probably gone up for a lot of people by $100,000, $200,000. Will that decrease in tax rate offset that? That's a real personal thing for each parcel, but it sure does help increase the possibility that they might not be paying more to you. Will they be paying more to city, county, fire, water, state? Yes.
Yeah.
But have they been paying more to Grandview? That's to be determined on each parcel. But your rate has dropped $2.40 over the last 8 years. I mentioned state taxes. When you look at property tax statements in Grandview, you'll have 4 lines that say school. These are the same slide overlaid with your EP&O levy in green, your bonds in tan, but now it has 2 gray bars. This is the state schools tax. This is the money that goes to Olympia that every parcel pays, and it gets put into the blender. And you get money back based on how many students you have in seats, how many transportation routes you do, how many meals you serve, how many IEPs you have, how many dual language learners you have, and that money gets sent back out to districts through apportionment. This number here, you're getting more back from the state than you put in as a community. But that can't be said for all schools like around the I-5 corridor, like Seattle, Lake Washington, Bellevue, Issaquah. When homes are worth $1.5, $2 million, they might not be getting back when they get. But most districts in Eastern Washington get it back. It seems like a lot, but I do try and paint the picture there, not being like a pro-tax guy here, but just sharing that this is how we funded basic education since before I was born. And then here is the brand new one that they did from McCleary to add additional resources in for salaries and the changes they made with McCleary. But today it's at 550. So nothing you can control, but I think it's interesting to have that fact in front of you. This slide I like to call the community trust slide because this is a summary of what the district put on the ballot historically in green and what's actually happened in gray. And one thing that you're going to notice is you've been really accurate, if not outperforming estimates most of the years here, excluding when they changed the rules very rapidly during McCleary. For example, in 2025, you put on the ballot $1.64 to the voters, and you're currently at $1.37. So you're outperforming the tax rate estimate by almost 30 cents. One thing that I always like to remind folks when they ask this question is just because property values went up doesn't mean the school board gets more money. You have locked in the amount for these 4 years and you don't get to increase that until the next election. And this is an example of that. Property values have gone up and so that tax rate has come down, even though you forecasted it would be $1.64. Who would have ever forecasted that your property values would go up in 1 year by 20%? If Brad came to me and said, hey, I want to bounce an idea off you, I'm going to raise our levy by 20%.
You would have called me.
I would have said, yeah, that's
Something's
crazy.
wrong.
But it happened. This slide, I hope you have it in paper because it's pretty small up here. I don't think this slide is important for decision making, but it's interesting to see what your neighbors pay in taxes, right? We're always curious if you're playing your rival in sports or they're in their gyms or you see their graduation rates, you want to know what kind of contributions they have to their local levy. You'll notice that you're right in the middle. I think you're around 7th in the county. And this is, I think, any district that touches in the county. You might have districts like that are maybe split between Benton. Trying to see if there's anything else in there.
More names than we do.
There's some I think we're the only ones.
Oh, I was looking at this one. I don't know what that one is.
So the values here are showing the values within Yakima County. This thing is constantly changing too, where districts might be considering running a bond or a new capital levy. Natchez, for example, just passed a new capital projects levy. West Valley's looking at running a bond. Yakima's considering one. So there's so many different things out there that are changing year over year, but this is a snapshot as of 2025. And since you're split between Benton, I put Benton out here too. I think you're 3rd or 4th in taxes here. So you've been right in the midst of the group, not an outlier for sure. So I shared with you in a previous slide what your levy lid was. I want to talk before we turn it over to Brad about local assistance. I'm sure you guys have heard about local assistance funding having some challenges lately. When I was at Educational Service District 101 in Spokane as the Director of Finance, we worked a lot on trying to maintain funding for LEA because this is meant for property poor districts to get support from the state. The districts that don't have Boeing, Microsoft, Amazon in their backyard that are paying massive amount of taxes. They created this, and now I say property poor districts. That's what it says in legislation. This helps property poor districts. I think we're property rich. We're just industry poor. And so I don't like the language here. So what this does is it helps districts without industry, who have a lot of farms and homes paying taxes instead of a whole bunch of commercial businesses paying. And you received money back here, and each year it grew to keep up with the Joneses. They compared you to Seattle. They compared you to Federal Way. They compared you to Bellingham. And they tried to keep it like a ratio to keep you equal to them as they could raise taxes so much easier. Then they changed all of the models of McCleary, and now you're on your own and you're not compared to anybody else. There's no equity amongst school districts. They just say, here are these formulas on your own. If your property's values go up, you tax your people to make that money. And so you'll notice that the whole formula's changed. Well, recently, 2 things have happened. the district is required to have a $1.50 levy to maximize your funding. And as your property value skyrocketed 20%, your tax rate started to drop below the $1.50. So now we're prorating the state match for local effort assistance. The second thing that happened is they put new money into local effort assistance this year, $150 new dollars in 2026 and $250 more dollars in 2027. But Brad and I compared notes and made sure the numbers that we think were accurate for Grandview. We think the amount could be up to 5.8 million in 2027 if you have a $1.50 levy. So that's the one thing that we argued with Olympia is you're requiring districts to keep a $1.50 levy to be eligible for all your state funds. You should allow districts, if they're eligible for local effort assistance, just to get it, regardless of what your local levy rate is. And it fell on deaf ears. They're basically telling you need to raise taxes to get your match back. So that's one thing I want to share. My last slide before turning it over to Brad is I wanted to build a visual of what the state says your levy lid is and to kind of show the challenge with this, because there's a lot of school districts that you have as neighbors or that you compete with in sports that are at levy lid. And this isn't for me coming in to try and sell to raise taxes, but this is showing the huge insurmountable task of trying to raise to levy lid and get these resources. One thing that this points out to me is knowing that there's other districts that levy lid is that you're doing more with less. You're being more efficient with tax dollars and you're running efficient programs. And not saying these other districts aren't doing that, but this just shows me a different fiscal stewardship that maybe we don't see elsewhere, because you could technically jump up all the way up to here and still be within OSPI legal limits. So I just want to do this graph to show what kind of drastic shift it would be to go up to the levy lid. This is not an endorsement for levy lid by all means. So Brad, anything that I didn't hit on this slide or before I hand it over to you?
Any questions?
It's a lot of information, but you don't have to figure it all out today. You have a whole nother month of reviewing and working with these numbers here.
Corey? Corey has a lot to offer, doesn't he?
Yeah, in fact, Dan
Well-
wanted to know if you would be able to come out when we have some community forums to go the next couple of months to speak.
But yeah, I'm free. I'm doing community forums before. Taxes is a hot topic. And I have my kids say, well, what do you do at work? Then I talk about taxes. It's kind of hard. But yeah, we stand ready. There's a night that we're free. We'll come down.
Awesome.
We had a public forum and Brad did a presentation on this. And it was what most people wanted to learn more about. That was one of the comebacks from it. So it tells me that they are interested and they want to know.
It's hard too, because we're not disputing the fact that people are paying more. We're all paying more. The hard part is we're not paying more to the schools right now. And how do we take care of the schools to the point where you're not absorbing inflation and minimizing programs for kids? It's such a hard balance because we want to be empathetic. At the same time, we don't want to let every other municipal entity be fined while we cut. And we're the only entity that has to ask for permission over and over and over again. And I'm not knocking fire, city, sewer, water, county, but they have a levy limit. And all they have to do is ask for an election if they want to increase the amount. I mean, they have to do the same with us for bonds. But when it comes to local levy, we're the only ones that have to replace levies, not lift levies. So some districts just get to lift it when they want. And if it doesn't pass, they go back to their old amount. We have a much higher risk reward.
One question I have, if you go to the levy lid
Mhm.
and you project 8 to 9% growth, and so you raise your amount of levy each year, or you're levying each year, and you end up with a 4% growth, and it puts you over the $2.50, what happens?
The county will not allow you to collect more than 250, so they will roll you back. One thing you'll notice is there's this little red number here, and I kind of skipped over it, so it's kind of in this 1 year, you were a little bit over the allowable limits because they changed it clear, and they will roll you back. There will not be taxed.
So in that case, you wouldn't end up with the amount of money you were expecting.
No.
Okay.
There's a lot of school districts in our state that run a levy for greater than levy lid, and it rolls back to 250 or the per pupil number. If you were a per pupil district, you'd be able to tax $14 million. There's other districts that tax that amount in the I-5 corridor. So we have some massive equity issues in our state when it comes to local levies. But that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Great. Oh, there goes the 80 credits. And so I thought I'd show the timeline real quick. We had the timeline, we talked about it at the last board meeting. Again, here, October 14th was last week, October 28th is, recording 0%. And if we can, we'll finalize the levy, so the next meeting on November 10th, they'll come in with a resolution. But I'd get the resolution done as soon as possible, so we can start, putting documents together and presentations, those types of things. And so if the board could do it by then, and then November 24th is when you would need to appoint a for and against. Those two, we've talked about that before too, committee members. And then December 12th, I'll make sure I get down to Yakima County and have it registered before December 12th. And then February 10th is the election, and December 12th is on here twice, so because that's also when we have to submit the explanatory statements to the county, and to submit for and against committees have to be submitted also on December 12th. We had a discussion at the last meeting, and so I'm come back with a recommendation. That in 2027, we go to 3,275,000, and then 3.6, 3.9. And going back, what I've done is I split the baby here a little bit, Chuck, and then I did 8% the first year, and then 999 across. And then put in the rate at $1.65, 67, 69, and 70, just to raise a little bit so the voters would know that it's going to go up by a penny. Or a penny or thereabouts. And then here's the levy amount, and then the estimated LEA, and as Corey mentioned earlier, it's estimated this time because we have calculations from SPI, but that can always change. Depends on what the legislature does every year. And that's the estimated LEA. And again, at this point in time, if we do not pass the levy, we lose both those numbers. And so that's well over 9 million. If you look at 2027. And if I just go real briefly here on the explanatory statement and the appointment for and against committees. And so this is where the board would need to, and for the most part, the explanatory statement, I put that together with the attorneys over the years. And so you have a responsibility, but pretty much I put it together with the attorney, so the attorney has to put the whole explanatory statement together anyway and sign off on it. And we try to make sure we put key words in there. There are requirements, what has to be in that paragraph. And if it passes 150 words, I need to bring this up to speed. I think it's still 150.
And I think 75 for the actual ballot.
Right, in fact, the ballots. And so there's only so many words you can put in there, but you have to put certain things that are required to be in there, such as what is the rate, what are the years, and that takes up space. I wish we could skip that part. But we'll put keywords in there, work with the board too. What do you consider the 5 keywords that would be important within this ballot? And see if we can squeeze them in there, we'll do our best. And then
just 2 cents, there's certain words that have done really well from voters' perspective, technology, safety, security are the top ones. And if you're using that levy for those things, I think it's worthy of having those considered to put in there because we want to make sure that the top things are on that explanatory statement.
Thank you, Corey. Very important. Yeah. Okay. So this, then the for and against committees, some of the board members have been here in the past, so we need to have somebody, you'll appoint somebody to be the 4 committee members. You have to have 3 members and then 3 individuals that they come forward on the against. And so we'll need to make sure we advertise and look for somebody on the against side. And my understanding is we only need to put it in on our website.
Correct.
As we have advertising his website, not necessarily the news, it's not required to be in the newspaper.
How do you normally communicate opportunities to serve or volunteer or be involved?
And then if nobody steps up to want to take that, do we still have to appoint somebody?
Yes, otherwise it goes to the county.
Yes, so if you post it and 3 folks show up and they're like, we want to be on the floor and nobody shows up against, because it's a little awkward to come to a meeting and tell you I want to be against you. The county then has the opportunity for them to post it and try and find somebody. So if you hear word of mouth that somebody says, I want to be there, but I can't do that, I can't go into the board meeting and say, well, reach out to the county if you're really interested. But yeah, you do not have to find somebody, you have to make sure that everybody knows it's an opportunity. Some districts don't have an against on there. It's kind of rare, but it happens.
Counties don't think they want to go statewide, and so if there's
They used
somebody
to.
on.
And now they don't have, now they have to stay in your jurisdiction.
Oh.
Can't have an outsider be your against.
Thank goodness.
So do they not have to be within Grandview? Cause it
They
sounds
have to
like,
be within Grandview.
Okay, 'cause I thought I
It used
heard-
to be that way.
I thought I heard jurisdiction as the county. I was like, oh.
No,
okay.
no, in your jurisdiction, the county will search, but it has to be somebody that's local.
Okay,
And they have to be. The question is registered to vote and or just a citizen, so I think they have to be a citizen, but not registered to vote is a requirement.
Within our school district.
Mhm.
And then again, the school board district will levy, district's job is to inform, not advocate. District cannot use any public resources for advocacy. Districts can inform the community about what is on the ballot. Districts can communicate via regular school district channels, newsletter, social media, website, robocalls, video, whatever we normally do in an everyday, we've talked about it too. And an every day, what we do every day leading up to a levy, what have we done in the past? We can use those same tools. District can say vote, but cannot say vote yes. That is, and then I had to put the JDs on the bottom.
Just a little disclaimer. Securities Exchange Commission.
And when-
I kept you out of trouble. So I put it in there.
Yeah.
When you say the district can't say vote yes, that extends to us board members, right? We can encourage people to vote, but we cannot encourage them to vote yes. Is
Right.
that correct?
There's one development we've seen, and you might reach out to Lee Marquis, they're your expert. Some boards are adopting a resolution after your resolution to put something on the ballot that says you're in favor of a proposition. Have you ever adopted a resolution that says we're in favor of the parks measure or the city's measure XYZ? There's a secondary resolution that Lee will probably bring up to you that's newer, where you then get some freedom, say the board has adopted a resolution in favor of this proposition, therefore you have some flexibility as a citizen and as a board. So there's some protections for you as a board moving forward with your legal team.
We certainly don't want to break any laws.
So that's the end of the presentation. Any other questions? And since we have Corey here, any more questions for Corey?
Thank you, Corey.
Happy, best of luck to you.
yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
Be in touch.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Corey.
Okay, any other questions for Brad on this before we move on? So we'll move on to the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor,
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Okay, new business, resolution 3. I'd call for a motion to approve resolution 3.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 3.
Second,
All in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Darling's report.
Good evening, board. Thanks for being here. I want to excuse Dr. Rivera. He's at the special ed law conference along with several others from our district. If you're gonna go to one conference a year, that's a good one to go to. They cover a lot. That's really helpful. So Jose and I met and presented at the South Central Wassa regional meeting last week, kind of on the work that we're doing to support our principals and them being effective instructional leaders. And I think it was pretty well received. We had a couple of districts reach out to us afterwards to find out more and see if they can do some more learning and even some visits to see the work that's happening. We had Center for Teaching by Literacy, do language classroom walkthroughs last week. And essentially they went through each class. We collectively went through each classroom and kind of doing an assessment, like how are we doing with our implementation? There's some specific look for us from the Center for Teaching by Literacy around structure, language allocation, content assessment, those kind of things. And so we'll get some really good feedback about where we are on our trajectory for implementation. Yesterday, I believe, yesterday's Monday, huh? Yesterday I attended the State of the College address with the interim president, Teresa Rich, at YVC campus. And she gave us a shout out about the potential partnerships we're working on with her with YVC to increase their impact for our students and offerings on our campuses, as well as the Running Start opportunities. And so we're excited to move that work forward. They're currently in the thick of hiring a new president, so once that happens, we'll get some more momentum back up for that. And then, just so you're aware, the quarter ended, and so we're officially quarter of the way through the school year, ready or not. And then, you all are the first to see this in print. This is our new, student, family, and staff handbook. This side is English, you flip it over, this side is Spanish. And it goes halfway through, and it's very print heavy, but it goes through here and it provides exactly what the different violations are that students can, commit, I guess, for lack of a better term, as a student, and then what are the districts, kind of a checklist for what are our recourses for action? What do we do for first step, second step, third step? Some of it is based on age, some of their age requirements as well, so there's no, after putting this out there, there's nothing that is not in the law or in a discipline law or anywhere that's not included in this pamphlet. And so I know it's really, like I said, really word heavy, but when it comes down to it, we can sit and walk through this with parents and show them exactly, here's where we are in every district in the building, this is the process, these are the requirements that we must follow when addressing this type of a discipline issue and behavior and harassment and such, and so. We've had it before, hodgepodge of pockets throughout different documents in the district. Jose and his team spent much of last year getting this ready to print, so it can be very public and transparent. So that'll be going home to every student.
When does that go?
It just showed up today, so when Jose's back, he'll be busy licking stamps and putting them on envelopes.
Yeah.
So I can't give you a specific date, but it'll be soon.
But here soon,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
And then next week, we have the coffee with the soup on Monday at 8:30 and Tuesday at 4:30. We have parent teacher conferences also, and then we have no school on the 11th, so we have a board meeting on the 10th. And then on the 13th, we have our migrant fall event. That'll be at McClure from 5 to 7, from 5 to 5:30, our dinner and setup, and then 5:30 to 7 is gonna be presentation and different events. And I'll be presenting some updates on our strategic plan. The Student Advisory Council will be meeting at the monthly meeting at the high school on the 14th. There, because the Thanksgiving break the following week, we will have another board meeting on Monday, the 24th, so I have 2 board meetings this month on Monday. And then we're talking about winter vacation in December.
Time flies.
Yeah, and that's my board report.
Any questions or anything on anything?
I just want to say aesthetically, I haven't looked through all the content, but aesthetically, this looks really nice and very well done. I did take a peek at the student dress expectations. It's nice to have that consistency throughout
Yeah,
and
You-
very inclusive as well.
yeah, you had identified like, why do we have 3 different policies for 5 different schools? So that was something that, like Jose said, it's in the works, and he put it all in here in one place, so we have
Yeah.
some consistency there.
All right, so we'll move on to the assessment portion. We have 3 of them. We have EL9, EL10, and ENS 1. I did look through all of them. I did not see any comments on any of them. So I think I would like to just go down each of them unless anybody has anything additional, and just approve each one of them as we go.
I make a motion to approve EL9.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to approve EL10.
Have a second?
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Make a motion to for insulin.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm gonna get you to make motions one way or the other.
Just a little nudge here, a little bit here and there.
You guys are so good at it.
You got a little bit to finish, Heather, on that?
I'm already there.
No, I'll go to the next one if you're fine with that from the board. I have a couple things.
Let's go ahead and go to the board.
So from the board, I was talking with Rob a little bit. He wants to bring to us kind of an update of where we are on the strategic plan based on information that he's been getting over the year. He was curious about when to bring that to us. I thought we'll bring it to the board and see when you guys want to do that. There's a couple options. We can either do it before a meeting and maybe come in a little early and have time to just go over it with us. Or we can do it during a meeting. He thinks it'll take about a half an hour, 45 minutes, depending on how many questions we may have. There is a little bit of information he's waiting on that we may not have 100%.
Right. Well, I'll have all the information except for the most current CEE survey data. That'll be ready probably right after winter break, and so that would be, I could provide those two
Okay.
pieces of components in January if we want to do it that way. But basically, this is giving you a progress report about how are we doing with our strategic plan goals.
So I was thinking on the 24th, which would give him as much time as possible. The other reason I was thinking, and I was talking to Rob about a little bit on the 24th, was this might be something good to bring up when we meet with the other school districts, that let them know how our strategic plan is going and, you know, kind of how we put it together. Maybe that's our little piece of the pie of talking about our school district, that we did this and here's some of the results from that, to kind of show it off a little bit. But that's entirely up to all of you.
I like that. I like the idea of doing it, starting a little early,
So
So-
I had a study session.
like a study session, yeah.
So I want to make sure
That's-
everybody
that's
can
my
make
opinion.
that. So maybe we just do a 5 o'clock, and that way we're not too rushed. It would give us till, 10 till to get it done, and maybe do that on the 24th. Do I have a motion for that?
I don't think so.
So we'll do a study. Are you?
We have to make,
You have a conflict with that?
I'm
Are you
gonna
gonna
take a
look?
look.
when we do study sessions, for the budget, we have to do that emotion, I think.
Okay. Make a motion to hold a study session.
That's.
We're gonna make
that's a-
sure Heather's
Make
gonna
sure we're
check her
good.
calendar real quick.
We said the 24th or no, because
24th.
we have the. Yeah.
That's the one that's on
Break,
Monday.
yes. Right now, it looks like that is possible. We said 5 or 5:30.
We said
Right,
5. That way we have 45 minutes or so in case we get into questions.
I think I can get here by 5:30, but I mean, if I'm a little late, I can let you all know.
Okay. Okay, so let's shoot for that. We can do a motion to do that and then see what changes.
Have a motion, make a motion, we have a study session on strategic plan update on November 24th at 5 o'clock.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. While we're at that, anything else from the board? Nada? Okay, we'll do our board assessment. I don't know. All we do is get good board assessments. I don't know what to tell you. Wait, no, I'm gonna have to bring somebody else in, I think. I don't know.
We need some.
Or get one of us to act up.
We need to appoint somebody.
Yeah.
Against vote.
You gotta remember, this is just during the meeting. So I'm gonna give that to you. Okay, we're gonna move on to enrollment, cash flow, budget status on the FYIs. Anybody have anything on that? Any questions? Based on that information that was provided?
I will share with you the budget status, our preliminary. And so we made some more entries. You'll be pleasantly surprised when you see the final budget.
Not surprised. They don't doubt you.
This is for this year or for last year?
Last year,
Okay,
but these are still going back to August, so the final one.
That's his teaser.
The next meeting is to hear the-
Send it at 9 o'clock.
So
yeah,
it looks like enrollment is about 80-ish better than we projected.
Yeah, and yes. There's a-
Perfect. That helps.
Actually, I do have a comment on your budget status report. I
Yes.
like the format. You've changed it. It's been a few months, maybe at least, but it's really easy to read through. I know it's very similar to the other one, but something about the shading and such, I don't know. It's easier to read. It's easier on the eyes. Thank you.
That's all part of that new software.
Yeah.
And we're working with them right now. If you look at, that one printed okay, well, maybe they fixed them. So, a couple of the funds down where it says line E, it was cutting off the pennies. And so, I think we'll finally got to hold them to fix that. Oh, yes, no, it's not. So if you go down to, example would be on which fund? This is the ASP fund. It's on page 6. And the far right of, line C, it cut it off. So we're working with the software company to say, why are you cutting off 3 characters?
Isn't there a
2 pennies
Superman
and a
movie about
bracket.
that? Richard Pryor steals all the pennies and he has become a billionaire. Superman 3.
Is that like what is it, 10 or 12 cent screws that they were charging to the Department of Defense years ago and it was never being shipped and all of that
Yeah.
stuff? Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, I see what you're talking about, the 189.
Yes,
Yeah.
so that was letter C, and the next one, line G, and also cut it off. So there, full disclosure, now you know, we spotted it, and we're, it continues to be an issue, we're working through it with them.
Okay, anything else on this part? I'm gonna jump back one thing from the board. I want to say that that little form that was filled out for the travel request, I like that form. Is that new? That McKinsey did, where you filled out, I don't remember seeing that before.
Like the travel request form?
Well, not the travel request form, there was another one that was with it that was like how many chaperones you're gonna have and the ratio and
Oh, like
that
the
extra
consent
little
form.
form.
And-
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that
I
form.
like
I'd
that
not
too.
seen that before come with any of our stuff. I like that a lot.
And I can start requesting that from now on moving forward.
Yeah, that was.
Isn't that the one that talks about how what they're going to fits into what they're doing?
No, I think that's more the memo, I believe.
Okay.
This one's the initial request that gets submitted to the principal for the.
Oh, yeah, I like that request, that. A lot of good information on it, I thought. Okay, policy, first reading of policy 1820. It's just the first reading. Everybody, I don't know if you have any comments or whatever, you can bring to the next one.
I just, in general, I think looking at this, we probably need to look at this in comparison to how we do assess right now, like these evaluations that we're doing. As well as our annual policies, and I don't have them off the top of my head, but to make sure they're in alignment because they may need to be updated as well.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think we're gonna start running into some things when we start getting into more of the policies of how they're gonna align with the strategic plan and our governance policy.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of my comment on the one for the superintendent evaluation that I want to bring up at the next meeting is it doesn't really flow with our governance policy.
Mhm.
So I think we need to look at that, but we may need to think about as a group, maybe setting a couple of us up to start, or somehow maybe we have another time that we start looking through some of these policies to update them. Because I know if they don't come up with stuff that's sent to do anything, we don't touch them. So
Yeah.
they may need evaluated from time to time.
And maybe if we do a board retreat, we do it at that point.
Yeah, maybe everybody looks at it and picks a couple of them and we review them and go
Yeah.
over them.
Okay.
We're gonna be looking for things to do on that, so.
Yeah, because when I was looking at just the heading and the language and, I didn't get into the details. I was like, oh, I'm gonna need some time to process and really go through and take a look and see, but.
Okay, anything? So our next meeting is the 10th. And I don't have anything else unless anybody else does. So we'll call it adjourned. Good deal.